Hello, people. It's your boy Usmaan back again with another Usmaan Talks. As always, this podcast is all about talking to real people about real stories, about real problems. This is the third episode within the series. The first two have been very different to the one that you're going to watch today. As always, if you're tuning in, make sure you drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and obviously get your questions in the comment section. Just to give a quick caveat, obviously, with the topic that we're discussing, as you can imagine, there's going to be some moments that may be difficult to discuss. So by all means, we will have information. I know it's a live show, but don't worry, I've got that sorted. Obviously, I've got something to discuss. Anyways, regarding the football, sadly, with a bit of racism with Swansea, obviously I'm planning on talking about it tomorrow, but if needs be, we'll discuss it today. Nonetheless, today's podcast is a very special one to me. I met this amazing gentleman not so long ago, a couple of months ago. He's paying me to say this, don't worry. He's already paid me. I met him not so long ago. For me personally, his story, I only heard briefly his story, and it blew me away. Like, I think the whole purpose of this sort of series is to inspire people and to show people there's always light at the end of the tunnel, as we alluded to so desperately in the podcast with Hayder. That's what it's about. It's about showing people their real struggles. We're all humans, and how they've overcome them, to inspire you guys watching this. And that's what it's about. Today we're going to be talking about Neil's story, how he's overcome and battled cancer, overcome and battled depression and other issues such as counseling and things that have helped him through that journey. Without further ado, my good friend is joining me first and foremost. Neil, how are you doing?
Not bad, considering that intro. I should actually be dead, but anyway, never mind.
Oh God! As you can see, he's not lost his sense of humor. Oh God! And listen, any opportunity Neil's got to take the piss out of me, he takes it, and that's what I love about him. So that's probably why our friendship's become so good, because me and Joe. I don't know if Joe's gonna tune in, but me and Joe have been getting shit from Neil for a while, but rightly so. But listen. First and foremost, huge sort of credit to Neil to come on and share his story. Of course, as always, we're looking for people that are very open, and that's what this is all about. Just before we go into it in detail, I just want to get the sort of gist of how things were before. So for people that are tuning in, just to give them an understanding, or people that aren't aware of your story. I believe it's 2010 when you first found out, but how was life prior to you finding out that information?
Well, life before diagnosis was, I was always super fit, and I'll say that I was super fit. I'd played semi-pro football most of my sort of in my 20s. I was playing veterans football.
Yeah.
When I got diagnosed, it's still at quite a decent level. So life was pretty good. I'd got a daughter. I was just got happily divorced, which was a result. And life was good. I got a good job, and everything in my world seemed to be rosy. And then suddenly you have a conversation with a nurse, and who was a neighbour, and your whole world's turned upside down so quickly that your feet don't touch the ground. Now, I just want to say something before we get into this. I'm no guru when it comes to this. I just know my story. I hope I can help someone. And if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I know what I went through, and I know other people, after meeting them during chemo, the different things that they went through. And by the way, before anybody asks, I didn't lose my hair during chemo. I was bald already.
Yeah, you just don't know. You seen Vin Diesel go for the Bulldog and the Rock, and you thought, if they can do it, I can do it. And
Jason Statham and me, we're exactly the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You spoke about the football. You were still playing football, when you first were diagnosed. How was that for you? How did it affect you? How did the diagnosis affect you?
Well, mentally? I remember playing a game just outside Southampton, and it was a Saturday afternoon, and it was a pre-season game, and the manager had said to me, we're going to play one team in the first half and one team in the second half. And I jumped up for a header, and then I woke up, and it was Sunday afternoon. And there was instances like that, like I used to black out. I blacked out walking down the stairs carrying a tray of food. I blacked out whilst having a shower, which was quite spectacular.
Wow.
I mean, how you can do that is, I mean, my water bill must have been huge that month, and I'm a tight ass. So I don't like stuff like that. But I kept having blackouts, and I was doing the usual bloke thing. I'll have a cup of Nurofen, cup of paracetamol, and I'm going off to bed. I never thought more of it until I used to go running quite a lot. And I went to run, and I was within 50 yards of my house. And I was basically on my knees. Sweat was pouring out of me, and a woman 2 doors down, Lisa, my neighbour, was a nurse, and she came out to me and she said, "You're not very well. You're not yellow. You're going grey. You need a blood test." And I thought, she's a nurse. She knows what she's talking about. So I phoned my doctors up, got a blood test for the next, got a doctor's appointment for the next day. And I remember walking into my doctor's surgery thinking, this will be all right. And walked into the doctor's room, and before my ass had hit the chair, he was on the phone booking me a blood test. He didn't even have to talk to me. He could see I was in big trouble. I had a blood test at 12:05 that day. And then I got a phone call. My phone went about 7 o'clock in the evening, and it was my doctor. And I actually said to him, "This isn't good news, is it?" And he went, "No." And we went through it. I've got a family history of having colitis with my father. Had been very poorly, and they thought it might be something like that. And then my doctor said, "There's a possibility this is cancer." So I was completely freaked by this. My parents were on holiday at the time. I was living on my own. And I remember phoning my parents, and I was borderline hysterical because the word cancer is a word that you never want to listen to, never want to hear, never want to sort of comprehend. And I got a neighbour to take me to the hospital the next morning. But I went to Portsmouth QA, and I remember going to reception. I got my little bag because they said bring some clothes. And I remember walking to the lifts, and I was really struggling. Sweat was pouring out of me. T-shirt was stuck to me. And this little old lady walked past me, and I'm not joking, on my daughter's eyes, she sort of looked at me in such a way that I thought she was going to ask me if she wanted to carry my bag. This woman walked past me, and I remember thinking, blimey, I could be in trouble here.
Yeah.
Made my way to the medical assessment ward. Remember sitting in the bed, lying on the bed, and the nurse's station was in the centre. And I overheard the nurse saying, "Blimey, that bloke in bed 4, he looks terrible." And I remember counting, looking at the numbers of the beds, and there was a bloke in the far corner. He'd got tubes hanging out of him. He got his family around him, and I thought, well, "Blimey, this bloke ain't got much longer to live." I was the bloke in bed 4. I had not a colonoscopy, the one through the throat, so through the mouth, camera down the throat. And they said, "We're going to send," I can't remember what it's called. I've had so many surgeries. So they sent a camera down my throat, and when I came round, I was on the ward, and the surgeon came to see me, and he pulled the curtain round, and the woman stood next to him had got Macmillan Nurse written on a sort of uniform, and I thought, I'm in a bit of trouble here. And my mother at the time had made it down because it was the next day, because I'd had to have a 24-hour blood transfusion because I'd lost so much blood. And this is the disgusting part of this story, but I'm going to tell it because people need to understand this. They need to be aware of this, us blokes, because we're crap at this. Every time I thought I was going to the toilet, and I don't mean for a wee, I was actually shitting out blood. Oh. So that was how ill I was. When I thought I was going to the toilet, it wasn't that, it was blood. It was undigested blood that my system was completely ruined inside because cancer had racked my system. My mum had gone to the local Tesco's probably to get me a bag of grapes because everybody in hospital has a bag of grapes. And the nurses left me alone, and the look on my mother's face when I told her I'd got cancer when she came back in, I'll take to my grave.
How was like, you know, I mean, you know, you spoke about when you first found the news, you know, you said that, you know, this isn't
I
great.
thought I was going to die.
Yeah, and yeah. How was your first reaction? And obviously, you
Well, my first reaction was they told me I'd got esophageal cancer,
just
and I was
for
like,
people that aren't aware, can you just explain what that is?
right. So I was told I'd got esophageal cancer, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the box, but I was esophagus but basically you've got
That's your throat.
when you eat your food, your throat finishes about there.
Yeah.
So your throat finishes there. So it's not the throat; it's the bit that it's the bit that joins between the throat and the stomach. That's the esophagus.
Yeah.
So and it curves round at the bottom, and I'd got a tumour, about 3 times the size of a walnut, sat in there. And within 6 hours of the diagnosis, I knew who my surgeon was, when my chemo was starting, when my surgery was. Everything was laid out in front of me for the next 6 months. All I had to do was stay as healthy as possible and do what the hospital told me to do. I remember speaking to my mother, and we sort of got ourselves settled, and then we realised that I'd have to phone my father. He was at home back in Birmingham, and that was brutal. Speaking to my dad's of a generation. My dad's in his late 70s, and my mother's mid 70s, and my dad's, he doesn't know I know this, but he phoned my brother. When he spoke to my brother, he was arranging my funeral.
Wow.
And along the lines of, where does Neil want to be buried? Does he want to be buried in Portsmouth by his daughter, where his daughter lives, or does he want to come home to Birmingham? Because my dad thought I was dead. And he looked at me for the next couple of years, like at any point I was going to keel over. It was very difficult. It's a generational thing. It's a male thing.
Yeah.
We don't seem to deal with stuff like this. My mother was tremendously strong when she was with me. But when she wasn't with me, apparently she wasn't. She put diesel in the petrol car. She was, walking down the bottom of my garden, screaming out loud because that's what she was told to do. It was better out than in.
Yeah.
But she was trying everything to hold us all together. My brother was massively shocked. It was a huge shock to the family. I wasn't a smoker. I wasn't a drinker. We'd all been fit. I was the first person in the family to get divorced, and I was the first person in the family to get cancer. So I was 2 for 2 at that time. And then you just have to. I just felt I needed to trust the system, which was the hospital that was looking after me. And your feet don't touch the ground. You have to just keep yourself well enough so that you can have a scan, so you can have X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, PET scans, all that sort of stuff. I had huge amounts of chemo. I was having chemo for over 9 hours at a time, which just absolutely ruined me, because they said, we want you to stay fit. So I was still going running while I was on chemo. I remember the first day I had chemo on the Friday, and they put you on steroids. And my manager phoned me up on the Friday night, and he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I feel great." I mean, I was on steroids. I was off my chump. I played a game the next day,
Wow.
and I could have played for about 4 days because I was on the steroids. If they'd have done drug testing at the level I played at, I'd never played again. That was my last ever game of football, because after that I was ruined. But you just the chemotherapy ruined me. I got rushed to hospital twice. I was getting blood clots on my lungs, so they were having to drain those off. And in the end, they had to stop the chemotherapy because it just got too much for my body. My body couldn't take any more. So the last course of it, they decided to cancel. And then my job was to get through Christmas. And then I was having the surgery on 11th of January 2011. And it was a 14-hour surgery to remove the tumour. But also about 2 weeks, about a week before, the surgery, I'd had a PET scan and they thought I'd got stomach cancer. Stomach cancer is a game changer. And I'd already been told that with the esophageal cancer I'd got a 2% chance of recovery from both the surgery and the diagnosis.
No, at this point, when you obviously you've gone into detail regarding how your parents reacted, obviously to being showing strength for you personally, obviously behind closed doors, they're dealing with a different matter. In terms of your mental state, knowing that when your parents see you in such a way, did that ever affect you at any point? And obviously, you kind of alluded to the fact that the doctors in particular were saying you need to stay fit. So obviously, you continued your running whilst you're on steroids, and then that had to stop as well because it's almost accelerated the condition. How was that on your mental health? Like obviously, first and foremost, your parents seeing you there, and obviously having to completely stop exercise. I know you're a massive football fan as well. I'm assuming mentally it would have been difficult for you in that period of time. I was
always proud of my fitness. I remember the night before my surgery, I went for about a 10K run, and I just thought, sod it, I'm going. And this was on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And my parents were both here. Luckily, my daughter was only 2 at the time. I remember telling my mother that the worst thing about all this was I'd never get to take my daughter to school. So my underlying feeling was just stay well enough to take my daughter was called Daisy. Just stay well enough to take Daisy to her first day at school. And my opinion was, if it comes back then at least I took my daughter to school. But I've fought with it. I was going to fight with everything I got because I've got a 2-year-old daughter and she's everything to me.
Yeah.
She's my absolute world. Her and the lady I'm presently going out with, Shona, mean the absolute world to me, and Shona's family and my family. But that's just because I'm very lucky.
How important have those relations been? Like you said there, you wanted to have this sort of opportunity to take your daughter to school. How instrumental and how much of a motivation was that for you to continue?
That was it. At the time, that was it. That was just fight for Daisy. I'd made a decision, and I didn't want Daisy seeing me in hospital. I mean, she was 2. I mean, you don't take children to. I didn't think it was right.
Yeah.
So Daisy didn't see me looking dreadful. Well, she's probably seen me looking dreadful, but she didn't see me looking dreadful then. And I just wanted to fight for Daisy. Really, I'd waited all my life to have a child, sort of thing. I never thought I was going to get one. And then in your 40s, when you're 40, you just have a child. You think, blimey, I'm never going to get one. And then I get one, and then she's just an amazing little girl. I mean, she's not little anymore. She's taller than my mother. So you just got to. I just needed something to cling on to and fight. Yeah. And I clung on and fought for my parents and my daughter and my brother and my family and the people that were sort of cheering me on. And, it's weird the way people react when you say the word cancer. Some of my friends couldn't handle it and they're not friends of mine anymore, which is a bit bizarre.
How was that for you? Because you've spoken there about relationships in particular, but as you've just alluded to, friends turning their back on you. If they can't,
my view at the time was, I can't be bothered wasting my time with people who can't handle it. I've got enough to battle with, and if they couldn't handle coming to see me while there's tubes hanging out of me and I'm spending weeks in bloody, days in intensive care and in high dependency units, then I'm not going to worry about if they're sweating by coming to see me. I just gave up. Really. I hadn't got the time. I hadn't got the inclination to worry. I was concentrating on what was going to be good to get me through this. You just kept battling, but the surgery was a success. It was a massive surgery. It was 14 hours. It was absolutely enormous. I remember when the surgery was. is a football related line, and I didn't think anybody would think I'd say anything football related. My mum and dad came to see me on I think it was the Tuesday, and my dad said I was in intensive care and I'd got 2 machines either side of me doing all my breathing because my lungs had completely gone. My lungs had been collapsed. And I was sort of drifting in and out. And the only thing I remember my dad saying to me was, Aston Villa just paid £27 million for Darren Bent. And I thought, he's winding me up because that has to be a joke. And when you look back on it now, it clearly was the truth, but it should have been a joke, shouldn't it, really? I mean, what a performance that was. £27 million for Darren Bent. But anyway, makes Bruno Fernandes looks cheap. I know that. You just trust the system. I remember waking up, sort of coming round maybe 3 or 4 days later properly and looking at I've got scars. I've got the zip up the front because they'd had to remove. When they opened me up, they thought I'd got stomach cancer, so they removed just over 50% of my stomach.
Wow.
As along with the esophageal cancer, because when I'd had a PET scan, my stomach had lit up like a Christmas tree, apparently. So they were going to cut me open. Then a couple of months after the surgery, when I was still recovering from home, I mean, the recovery was brutal. It was just incredible. Well, he's right, isn't he? I mean, 3 midfield podcast, he knows the score.
Yes.
No respect to Harry Red. It wasn't Red. Well, Redknapp did pay. It was Gerard Houllier who paid 27 million for Darren Bent. He was the Villa manager. And then I remember thinking I wasn't gaining weight correctly. And I was having problems keeping my weight on, and suddenly I looked like an extra from Schindler's List. I was losing tremendous amount of weight. Went back into the hospital.
How was that? Just to, obviously we've gone through quite a lot, and obviously I appreciate you being so honest. But I just want to just get a grip of how that was like. When you just said there as a joke, obviously, but to you losing so much weight. And at this point, obviously I'm assuming you're still at the hospital. But when people visit you regularly, how is it for your family members? I
was at the hospital every single Friday, even after the surgeries. So my mum had basically moved in with me after the hospital, after the first surgery, looking after me and sort of, cooking meals, particular meals, because there's only so much food. There's only certain types of food I could eat. And then we went one Friday and I was looking pretty spectacularly rough. And they sent me upstairs for MRI. And so I had an MRI sort of walked into the surgeon's office. He said, "You look terrible. I want an MRI." So I had one within the half an hour. And I came back into his surgery, and what was left of my stomach had collapsed. So if you imagine your stomach system, so you got your throat, then you got your esophagus, then it goes round, and it goes all round, and we got the stomach, and then you've got the gut, and then you've got the bowel. My stomach is a tube down that side now, so it's just like a Coke bottle, like a big Coke bottle down there, because what had happened was the stomach that was there had collapsed and it had rolled itself over, and it was sitting on my right hip. So what they had to do was they had to go back. All my scars, or most of my scars, are on the back, right. And we've got the zip up the front. Because to get through the esophagus, instead of breaking your chest plate, instead of breaking your sternum, they go through the rib cage at the back. So they opened me back up again, and then they pulled the stomach off the hip up to here, and it's all been stapled in. So if ever you saw an X-ray of mine, it's just staples galore everywhere. These sort of, I guess they're UPVC or something. Same thing as you get your windows made out of, I hope. And it's sort of holding me in place. So they pinned it all back in. That surgery was apparently the first time that surgery had ever been done in the world. Now, the surgeon who did it was a chap called Shaw Summers. Now, anybody could Google that guy, and he's the world's leading stomach surgeon. And I'm lucky that he operates out of Portsmouth, QA. Now, normally when you have a surgery, you have to write a disclaimer.
We got comedy from our good friend here, Doc, as we both know really well. Greetings, gents. Great program, son. Neil, you're a legend.
Doesn't he mean legend? Legend. Anyway, so normally when you have a surgery, you have to sign a disclaimer. Yeah. One of the problems was my surgery had never been done before, so they were very hard to. So I had to sign a disclaimer saying I was happy to not sign a disclaimer, if you see what I mean. So when I went in for the surgery, they had to fill it in as they were doing it.
How was your mindset going into that surgery? As you just said, it was the first that's ever been done in the world. How was, how were you and how was your family? Were your family aware of this happening?
Yeah. I mean, we sat there. We watched the video of, we watched the MRI and they brought it up on the screen, and your stomach should be there and it's over there, and me and my mum are looking at each other and we're going, he's a cheeky sod, isn't he? He's lucky I won't jump on a plane tonight. At least that's it. I'm not drinking South African wine again. So I remember driving home after that appointment, and we didn't say a word in the car. My mum got straight on the phone to my dad. I went into my bedroom and I just cried my eyes out because I thought, Christ, I've had the cancer surgery. Now I've got something else. Mr. Summers said to us, I don't know what's wrong with him, but the only thing I can tell you is if I can't fix it, he's going to die. And when you hear words like that, you just think this is just getting beyond a joke now. I didn't know what I'd done to upset people in the past. All you do is you have to trust the doctors. Yeah. The only thing I was told not to do from the point of diagnosis is never Google it.
Yeah.
Do not Google what's wrong with you. And I've never done it to this day. Even if I get a headache or if I, damage my thumb, never Google it, because it's all bad news in that world. So I just had to trust the system. I mean, I was lucky. I had some amazing surgeons. Some of the world's greatest surgeons have looked after me, and oncology doctors. I met people that never made it, and it breaks my heart. And I think about them. I genuinely. I know people think I'm a bit of a joker, but I genuinely do think about people every day that never got out. And I'm so grateful for what I've got around me now. And I don't moan about the stuff that I used to moan about. I used to moan about the crap stuff, like getting a nail in my tyre and having to buy a new tyre and crap like that. I don't give a damn about that. I know what's important now.
Yeah, so it gives that perspective. I just wanted to come back to the comment that you made, that obviously when you first got back from the hospital, you said you got into your room, you obviously you're very emotional at that time, which is quite understandable. But you said, which is something that I picked up on, you said that what had I ever done to others? Like, I feel like a lot of people, especially good people that tend to live their lives the right way, they always have that, when something bad happens to them, they always feel like there's some sort of resentment, or there's always like, why did God do this to me? What have I ever done? Sort of thing. Did you ever start questioning other beings? Did you ever question, your life decision in the past? Did you feel like it was ever karma, or what was your thought process in that moment?
I did start to question it when I first got diagnosed. But you sit in a chemotherapy ward, and you look at the other people. You meet other people in there. I felt like a hypocrite when I was questioning it, because I met some wonderful people, and some of them never even were lucky enough to get to the point of surgery. So I felt it was all about woe is me and me, and I'm tremendously selfish. Hopefully my partner wouldn't say I am, but I believe I am. I'm a bloke. I mean, we're sort of wired in that way in some respects. I've always said, all these kids walking around with ASBOs, put them in a chemotherapy ward for a couple of days and they'll soon change their bloody mind, because That's brutal stuff. That's the only ward in the whole of that hospital I've never been able to go back to. I don't ever want to go in there again.
Would you say that kind of course, you know, having to battle with this would change your perspective as well? But would you feel that in that moment, as you just said, that some of the people that you had the pleasure of meeting didn't get the sort of benefits or having the surgery or the treatment that you got? Did you feel that made you more grateful?
No, it made me guilty.
Opposite, sorry.
It made me guilty.
Oh, guilty, sorry.
The biggest emotion I've ever taken from this whole process, and I can't explain this. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I feel guilty about getting cancer because of what it's put so many people through. I feel guilty about costing the NHS as much money as I've cost. I feel guilty that my tablets that I take on a daily basis cost over £200 a day, and I've been taking them for over 10 years. So do the maths. It's not, you know, it's quite a few bob. So anybody who's watching this, thanks for paying your tax and your national insurance, because I'm chewing it every night. Guilt is the biggest emotion I've ever taken from this. I mean, just going back to the story with the stomach, and then I had my rib cage collapsed about 3 months after that, and I've got a plastic rib cage all down the right-hand side. So if any of you are old enough to remember what Meccano used to look like when we were kids, and you used to take the lid off the top of the Meccano and all the pieces were lying on top of each other, that's what my rib cage looks like on the right-hand side. I've got half of one lung missing on the left-hand side. I've had numerous lungs have collapsed on me quite a few times. I've had so many surgeries. I've had major surgeries. I've had what I now call procedures because I'm in and out in a day, and I've got more to come. But the biggest ever issue that I ever found with the cancer is the stuff that goes on between your ears. Because when you turn the light off and you're trying to get to sleep, that was the hard times for me, and that's the mental health side of this was brutal. And I have good days and bad days. You know, my partner Shona knows that, and she, you know, she's amazing, but she can see it. She knows my moods. She can see it by just looking at me. But I found it very, very difficult to deal with the mental health side of it, probably more than I did the surgeries. The surgeries it's not like they're going to wake you up from a surgery and say we messed up, you're not going to make it. But the mental health side of it is difficult, and I've had counselling for years. I've taken antidepressants. All they do is they make the dark days not as dark. That's what I'd say with antidepressants.
In terms of, you know, prior to getting to antidepressant, you've spoken about, you know, we had a chat, you know, when we was arranging everything, the details of this podcast, and you spoke about the mental side, and that's something that I know a lot of the viewers here, especially during lockdown, will be struggling with. In that period that you were saying that the mental side was so difficult for you, what was the thing that kept you going through that? Because there's going to be a lot of people watching this.
My daughter.
So was it?
My daughter was the one that I picked something to focus on.
Yeah.
I wanted to walk my daughter. First of all, I wanted to take my daughter to school when she was old enough. And then when she got to the age, sort of, the picture in the document I sent you is Daisy's first day at school.
Yeah.
So I picked targets. So it was Daisy's first day at school. You know, then it was Daisy's first day at senior school. Then it was to try and sort of rebuild. You know, I take crazy amounts of painkillers. I take stuff stronger than morphine. But that still doesn't help the stuff that's... I'm allergic to morphine. So it sends me proper crazy. That'd be a good podcast. So it's... I needed something to focus on. I wanted to show my parents. I wanted to show my father in particular that I was getting there, because every time I met my dad, he used to look at me like an X-ray machine. So he'd ask a question, but he never believed the answer I was giving him.
Yeah.
And I could feel him sort of looking at me.
How was that for you? Obviously, knowing that
It still happened.
As you mentioned, the mental side of it, you had your daughter to focus on, but in terms of your parents, you knew your mum was struggling, but in particular, your dad, how it is for us men, we find it difficult in these times.
My mum was amazing. She was struggling, but she never showed me. We've only spoken about it since I was over the cancer. I'm no longer a cancer patient, if you like. I've got other issues that are, moving forward. Yeah. But we've only spoken about it sort of way after the, sort of the major surgery. I've got a couple of big...
able to discuss it within that sort of period of time when obviously this was all going. Was it too difficult?
Not when it was going on. We never spoke about it because we weren't emotionally in the right place to do it. And I've got to be honest, I got fed up of crying. And I got fed up of seeing my mum upset.
Yeah.
And, it was, people used to just look at you in a slightly different way because once you've had this, it was like my dad, even now, if he phones now, I'd pick up the phone and say, "How are you?" And I know exactly what he means. What he means is, "Are you eating? When was your last blood test? What, blah, 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 blah." He's bump, 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 bump. But I'm hoping he gets to the point where he goes, "How are you?" And he actually means, "How are you?" I mean, I've been on holiday with my parents, and I'm bloody 50 plus now. I take my daughter on holiday with my parents. I mean, that's how weird things have got. But at least I get a free holiday in Tenerife every year.
Yeah, listen, I kind of want to go back to, you said regarding the antidepressants, but before we go into that, I just want to talk about the counselling. I believe you went to Macmillan first, and as obviously I know the story, but obviously for those that are listening, you went to Macmillan first. They said that they couldn't sort of deal with your diagnosis, so to speak, and then you had to go elsewhere. First and foremost, how was it? How did it feel to get rejected from Macmillan, who are meant to be, of course, everyone knows what Macmillan are. And then how was the process in going to, was it Harbour Cancer?
Yeah.
So how was the process getting that information from Macmillan saying that we can't deal with, your case, and then going elsewhere, and how did they support you so much?
Well, the Macmillan thing was bizarre because the Macmillan Centre in Portsmouth is within the hospital at QA. Yeah. So they made an appointment for me at the hospital. And me and my dad went in, and the woman had seen my medical notes and all this, and the manageress came out, and she said, "We can't help you, son." And my dad was like, "What?" And my dad's not subtle, let's put it that way. And he said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Given what your diagnosis of what your son's got and what he's going to go through," she said, "we haven't got the experience to help." So Macmillan turned me down. So when I see these adverts, I know, let's be honest, Macmillan have done fantastic work with a lot of people. Absolutely. But they're not the biggest. I'm not their biggest fan. So we then found out a local charity called Harbour Cancer Support, which is, the logo is on that shirt behind me there, and I made a phone call, made an appointment, met a lady called Melanie. She became my counsellor, and she was amazing because she not only helped myself, she helped my mum. So she did counselling sessions with my mum. She used to come and visit me because I had so many, I've had the cancer surgery, the stomach surgery, the rib surgery. I'd had another stomach surgery, which was hilarious, which involved my colon and stuff going all over the place. She'd come and visit me in hospital, and she worked really, really hard to keep me together. Yeah. But she became, it was like an umbilical cord. I couldn't do without her. So it was like, first of all, it was twice a week, then it was once a week, then it was once every 2 weeks. I don't see her anymore. because I feel that there should be someone else that should step into that. But in some respects, that Harbour Cancer Support saved my life, because they kept me going from on a week-to-week basis. Because it is that, my opinion, and this is only my opinion, and I know there's going to be people out there that disagree. I've always thought that there is help out there, but you've got to put your hand up to say, I need some help. Yeah. And the hardest thing to do is put your hand up and say, I'm really struggling now. I need some help. I mean, I had days when I was checking the railway timetables because I'd had enough. I'd had enough of the pain. I'd had enough of the grief. I'd had enough of everything. I'd had enough of the guilt. And I was ready to go. I'd sort of got there. But Harbour dragged me back. But if anybody's watching this and they think they're struggling, put your hand up and say, I need some help, because there is help there. But you've got to go and ask for it. And that's the hardest thing to do. It always is the hardest thing to do, is ask for the help. And I firmly believe that, because it nearly killed me to ask for help, because I was embarrassed to ask for help. I felt guilty about asking for help, all the usual stuff. But it's one of the best things I've ever done in my life, was asking for help, because it's got me to doing these crazy podcasts now.
Just in terms of asking for help, obviously got a message from Temi that we both know really well. Love that message, brother. Shout out to you, homie. I hope you're doing well, man. But in terms of asking for help, this is something in society, especially, in men's mental wiring, as you would say, it's almost seen as a sign of weakness. It's seen as, like, if you ask people for help, you're weak. How important is it for us to, I suppose diminish, but overlook that taboo? How important is it to continue to have the conversation of that? It's okay to not be okay. It's okay not, it's okay to need help. As you said, it's okay to look for guidance from others and accept that some things aren't okay. And for you to do that is a huge sort of, is commendable to you. And it shows that you're brave. It shows that you accept, there's other things that you can't look after yourself in a certain way, and you went out. And a huge shout out to Harbour Cancer Trust as well for the work that they do. Obviously, I wasn't personally aware prior to speaking to yourself of their existence, but it's quite evident that the role they play, just not in your life, but in many others' life, is so influential in saving people. So coming back to getting that help from them, I read a bit about them. I know they do a lot of work on counselling. You spoke about taking antidepressants and how they weren't really helping you. Well, they were helping, but it was just a matter of making the darkest days less darker, which of course everyone needs that from time to time. But in terms of how influential were they in keeping you on the straight and narrow, were there ever moments in your in that period prior to going to them, or even during going to them, you thought, I know you kind of alluded to already, but I can't do this anymore. Like, it's too unbearable. What on your dark is what got you through? Like, what was it? Was it their help? Was it their support? Of course, I know a part of that was definitely your daughter, but what was it that really got you through and said, "No, what? I'm going to keep fighting because these guys are believing in me, and I need to start believing in myself."
I think what got me through, I still come back to the same thing. I think this is my family. I've got an amazing parents, amazing daughter, and I think now, if I think back to the position I was in then, where it was dark, and I mean proper, like, I was done. I was in pain, serious amounts of pain. I was having electric shock treatments once a month to try and numb the pain that my body was causing. And I'd just given up. You get to the point where you just given up. And now if I look where I sit now, I don't mean literally sit, but where I'm in my life now and what the last 5, 6, 7 years have been, I've got a whole future in front of me, and I've got a happy life in front of me. I've met an amazing lady. My daughter's doing really well at school. My parents both have had the vaccine, so they've had a touch. I've not had it yet, which is, come on, what are they doing? So my future's in front of me. And that's the way I look at it. I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
but I can influence what I can do about the future. But what got me through it, God knows. God knows. I have absolutely no idea what got me through it. My daughter, whether it was my parents, whether it was I hadn't got the bottle to actually do it, whether it was, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But I know that going to Harbour Cancer Support gave me a structure and gave me a purpose, and it's a structure that you need, and that's what Harbour Cancer Support gave me. They gave me a structure for my life to move it forward. There's a lot of things that I can't do now that I could do then, but Harbour Cancer Support put a structure into my life and sort of took me apart and put me back together. I still have good days and bad days, but I've now got a way to get through the bad days. And if I have a bad day, then you just put it to bed and you wake up and you know the next day's better, because there's always going to be a next day for me now.
100%.
And that's the most important thing. But I still go back to the point, whereas I just think us men in particular, need to put our hands up. I mean, you got to look yourself in the mirror sometime. I know this is going to sound like loads of cliches, and I'm sorry about that, but you need to look. People need to look themselves in. There's someone watching this now that needs to look himself in the mirror to say, yeah, I need help, or I think I need help. Well, if you think you need help, go to your GP. Your GPs are really good. My GP was brilliant. If it was up to me, my GP would be knighted. But there is help out there, but you've got to go and ask for it. That's the biggest thing. Put your hand up and say, I need the help.
That first step is always acceptance in it, you know.
Yeah, accept that you need it and then go and get it.
Yeah, we live in denial so much as human beings of, you know, what's going on in the world. You know, I'm guilty of it. You know, there's been times, I think I tweeted yesterday, actually. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. I tweeted, I'm not feeling it. And it wasn't anything, I wouldn't say it was anything in particular, but there's been times during lockdown that I've struggled so much mentally because...
Yeah, lockdown's been awful.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had to accept that, you know, I had to reach out to friends, and it's been difficult for me to do that because we have that sort of, I don't use the word arrogance, but we have that sort of shame about, I have to.
But I bet you feel guilty about reaching out.
Exactly. And
that's my point. Stop the guilt and just get on and let's stop feeling guilty and let's go and ask someone, because there will be someone out there that can help.
100%. I just want you to come back to the point that you made regarding purpose. You used the word purpose, and obviously Harbour Trust gave you that structure and purpose. I want you to point out on that, because this is something that a lot of people struggle to understand. You know, we will go to the present day at some point during this podcast and discuss you know, your now purpose, which I think I already know where it is. But in terms of finding your purpose in life, you know, you were in that moment that, you know, everything was stacked against you. I kind of use this analogy, you know, everyone gets dealt a hand in life. You could have looked at it in a negative way and said, look, I've been dealt the worst possible hand I could have been dealt here. I'm not going to win this. I'm not going to continue to battle through it. But it's quite evident the thing that got you through it was finding that purpose. How important was it for you to understand as a human being, this is, you know, I need to understand what my purpose on this planet is? And when you eventually found that, how much did that change in terms of your mindset?
Well, I think I went through a stage where I stopped being the woe is me. And I'm massively the woe is me, by the way. But I think a lot of people have been a bit annoyed if I hadn't been around. And I don't say that in an arrogant way. I think, you know, there was a lot of, you know, I'd got great friends, and I realised over time that I'd got some amazing friends. I mean, I had a friend of mine that I didn't answer the phone call, and he drove 140 miles to knock on my front door because he was worried about me, because he knew what I was going through.
Yeah.
And when you've got friends like that, and when you've got family like that, and I've got an amazing daughter who, at this point, did understand what daddy, you know, my daughter knows daddy had cancer. Yeah. She doesn't know the big story, because there's
how does that make you feel, knowing that, like, she knows your son?
It kills me, because she sees my scars. Yeah. She used to, when she first found out, She used to kiss my scars to make them better, try and make them go away, and that used to break my heart. But they're part of me now. I hate them, but they're part of me. But the purpose can be anything you want it to be. It's just that you don't want to give in sometimes can be your purpose. Yeah. And I just didn't want to give in. I've got plenty to live for. At the time, I didn't feel like I had, but I'm glad I have now, because my life's really pretty good. Well, it's very good.
I'm glad to hear that. We will be touching about that shortly. But in terms of, you're saying that at times you didn't know what your purpose was, and obviously now you've kind of come through that. A message that we spread on this sort of series in particular. I've already said it on the first two episodes, and I would say it again. I think your epitome of what I'm about to say is there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Regardless of how bleak, regardless of how difficult things can be, life is always going to throw obstacles in your way. Life is always going to have your dark days, as Neil said. But you have to keep fighting. You have to keep going, find that purpose, and continue to strive. And I think one thing that you said that was so important, amongst other things, was when I asked you what was the thing that kept you going. You said that you had that target in your head, that focus, which was seeing your daughter, taking your daughter to school for the first time. And I think in these moments of dark times, it's so integral, as human beings, that we don't give up and we continue to have targets that may be very small. I don't know, like going for a walk every day or whatever it may be. It could be literally the smallest thing, but just taking those steps in the right direction, it gets you closer to the light at the end of the tunnel. I think your story completely epitomizes that, and it's a huge credit for you to being so honest. But I kind of want you to talk about some of the other sort of amazing things you've done. Obviously the shirt behind you in a frame. A lot of people probably haven't got a clue what that refers to. You kind of referred to it earlier when you spoke about Harbour Cancer Trust. Do you want to explain what that shirt represents? What is it about? How did it sort of come together? What was the sort of initiation behind it?
Well, I was, as I'd said, I claim to have been always quite fit.
I just got to put this comment because this is my brother. So he's put, Neil, don't give ideas on that to Usmaan, as I'm not driving 200 odd miles to see him. That's my older brother, by the way. So yeah, thanks for the love, bro.
We got to the point I'd been probably 5 or 6 years in, with 5 years with
are we 2015 here?
This was 2015. So about 5 years I'd been seeing Harbour support, and I decided I wanted to try and give something back, the old cliche. And I was a member of a local gym. Well, it was a hotel with a gym attached to it. I got talking to a couple of guys in the bar, funnily enough. And I said, that they knew my story, and they said, why don't we do a cycle ride? And I'd ridden a bike since I'd had a grifter when I was a kid, and stuff like that. And I can't run because of my rib cage. My rib cage is, the impact just hurts my ribs and stuff. But riding a bike, I can actually do, because your ribs, your upper body stays fairly still. So we got a team together, and there was 12 of us. And what we decided to do was ride from the Solent Hotel in Portsmouth to the sister hotel in Bristol by the airport and back again. And we decided to do it for charity. And we had a dinner dance the week after.
Dance, yeah. Neil, can you dance?
Oh God, no! I look like I've got an iPod on and listen to a different record to everybody else. You don't want to see me dance. So we arranged this, and we had a charity auction. I got Sir Chris Hoy's Olympic 2012 tracksuit, unwashed, signed by Sir Chris Hoy.
Wow, okay.
That went for a few bobs. But we raised all in about just over £30,000.
Wow, that's incredible.
And that was back to the charity. And that shirt is the shirt that we wore. And all the cyclists who did it signed it, and they've all left a load of abuse on there for me. because I gave out plenty of abuse on the ride and they gave out a ton back, and now they've written it on their shirt that I've now got forever. So I felt, because of my guilt, I felt I wanted to give something back to Harbour Cancer Support, because I feel that they've had just as big an impact in keeping me alive as the surgeons have in many respects.
Yeah.
Because they did the mental health side of it, and she kept me sane. And I've now realised, as time's gone on out, how important mental health has been. The last year has proved us that with everything that the country's going through. You look at, there's mental health issues popping up every day. But I just, there is help there. But if there isn't, then go and kick some doors down and go and get the help. Because there are people out there that want to help, but you've got to put your hand up. And I was lucky. I don't know why I did it. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. Maybe it was because I wanted, maybe it was because of the influence of my parents. They brought me up the right way. Maybe it was the influence of my daughter. Maybe it was because I just wanted to live a full life. You know, and I'm not saying I'm cured from cancer. I've still got issues moving forward, but I'm over the worst. Everything else that's moving forward, I can handle that. Anything that's coming now, I know I can handle. Then, without the mental health help, then I'm not sure how much I could have handled.
Yeah, no, it's quite evident that, you know, the way that they've done with yourself is nothing short of incredible. Just
she took me apart and put me all back together again, like I was a busted car.
Yeah. There's one comment that there's one word that you keep using, Neil, and you know I have to ask you about it. The word guilt. Look, I'm sure. Obviously, look, I know you really well. I know you well enough to know what you're going to say. But in terms of looking from, you know, the perspective of the people watching this, myself included, you know, listen to your story. For me personally, I just don't see how your story and that word coexist in the same sentence. In terms of, I don't feel like you should feel like that at all. If anything, I think you're an absolute champion and inspiration. But my question to you is, do you ever feel like there's going to be, look, you raised 30,000, which is an incredible amount of money as well, which deserves a lot of credit. Do you ever feel like there's ever going to be a point that you don't feel that way? You know, in terms of guilt.
I think I'm always going to feel guilty about it, but I think what the counselling has done and what it did for me was, we agreed after about, I don't know, 4 years of counselling, that we were going to put guilt in a little box and we're going to stick it on a shelf and we're going to leave it there. Yeah. And that's what I've done. But I do still feel guilty about it, but I don't feel guilty about it nowhere near the way I used to feel. I mean, it used to be every day, all day, every now and then. Now I just get a bit of a flash about it.
Yeah.
But it's in a box and it just sits on a shelf. But it's still there. But I cope with it.
Yeah, that's understandable. Just coming back to the bike ride itself, in terms of the difficulties, what was the most difficult part?
The hill.
Would you do it again? I know what you're going to
say.
No,
not a chance. Not a chance. I haven't ridden my bike for 3 years. I'm in too much pain, and that's the truth. Yeah. I mean, my partner Shona keeps saying to me, we got to get you back on the bike, and all the lads say you got to get you back on the bike. But I've had some issues the last 18 months or so I need to get them sorted out. I'll get back on it one day, but I don't look good in lycra. I got bandy legs for a start.
No comment.
You'll never see that picture. You'll never see that.
Yeah, listen. To be fair, you know, lycra doesn't suit all of us. You know, I'm one of the few that can pull it off, but it is what it is. You know, if we don't get to choose, you can pull it off. But I kind of wanted to finish on two topics mainly. One of being your family, and the second, you know, as you said, you've got more purpose in life now, which is amazing to hear. I want to finish on your sort of present / looking forward to the future. What does that mean for you? But first and foremost, I just want to talk about your relationship with your family. We'll start with your parents first and foremost, and then obviously we'll go through. You know, how is your relationship been through the sort of last decade with your parents? Have you ever felt like it's changed through the times, and how is it at the moment?
We're ridiculously close. I am a classic mummy's boy. We speak far too often on the phone. If I get a missed call from her, I feel I need to ring her back straight away, because if I don't, then she'll be worried if I'm not very well, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I get on great with my parents. I'm lucky. Some people don't. I get on great with my family. And we sort of come together. I don't think we were this close before the diagnosis, but we're very close now. And they take the mickey out of me as much as anybody else does.
What about I've not really mentioned it a lot, however, because obviously I wanted to leave it towards the end. In terms of Daisy, how has your relationship been with her? Obviously for her sort of childhood, so to speak. How old is she now? Sorry.
She's 12.
She's 12 now. Yes, obviously she's seen quite a lot of the early stages. How was that? How was that for you? Obviously, as you said, your focus was to make sure you get to school. And obviously, you've done that, which is incredible. But in terms of your current situation, how are things with them? What's for the future?
It's it's normal. The way I'd say it now, it's a normal relationship in the respect that she lives with her mother and I'm a father. And I'm here and stuff. Lockdown's been difficult because I've not been able to see her because she's in a different house. But with all the communication tools you got these days, you make the best of a bad job, and that's what we've managed to do. I've not seen my parents in over a year. I've not seen my daughter in a long time. Wow. But you've got phones, you've got Skype, you've got Zoom. I wish I'd have bought shares in Zoom about a year ago, by the way. So, yeah, I mean, I'm fine. That's fine. There's certain stuff, the stuff moving forward with surgeries. There's no need for Daisy to know. I don't want to stress her out. Yeah. I haven't kept her in the dark. She knows Daddy's been ill, but she doesn't know how bad. And it'll be the same thing moving forward. I'll do anything to protect my daughter. I'll take, as Bruno Mars once said, I'll take a grenade for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mind you, what sort of girl was he going out with? Who people were throwing grenades at?
Oh God! And obviously, for me personally, I would call her crazy. I would call her mad. But for some reason, a lovely lady came into your life at 2015.
Oh yeah,
she must be someone special, because if she's having to put up with you every single day.
Exactly.
How integral has she been on your journey? Obviously, she came, you said, roughly 2015. How important has her sort of presence been within your life?
Shona makes things real. She doesn't take me pussyfooting around. If I need straightening out, she'll straighten me out. She calls it like it is. She's wonderful. She's beautiful. She's everything I've ever. I can't imagine being with anybody else, because she's everything. She's absolutely everything to me. Her family are fantastic. She's got great kids, great family, and we have great fun together. And we basically live together through lockdown. And she's not kicked me out yet, which is it's my house we're in at the moment. But I know what she means. But she's just a wonderful lady, and I couldn't thank her enough for being in my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know why she hasn't kicked you out. God knows what's going on.
God knows. Don't ask her that. I could go and get her if you want. She's probably watching this upstairs.
Yeah, that blows my mind. But listen, she must be an incredible woman.
She is.
I just want to finish on a bit of a positive look. We've spoken a lot about your story and how much of a fighter you are, and I think a lot of people would have taken a lot away from it. I know I definitely have, in terms of just fighting every single day, regardless of obviously the difficulties you may have. You got to keep going, so to speak. In terms of moving forward, how's your health at the moment? What and I already know the answer, but I'm asking for the people that are watching. But how's your health at the moment? You spoke about you got a beautiful daughter, you got a beautiful wife, and what would you say your purpose is now?
my health at the moment is interesting. I went for a CT scan on Wednesday, and I've got to have a disc taken out of my neck. And they're going to take it out from there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get a cracking scar. Apparently, chemotherapy has damaged part of my bone structure in the neck, and they've got to take a disc out that's collapsed. Wow. Once that's been taken out, I'm having what's called 3 spinal stimulators fitted into my spine. And they are a way to control, I've mentioned before, I'd had electric shock treatment to deaden the pain. And this is a way to control the pain. And these are controlled by an iPod. And I genuinely mean an Apple iPod. Wow. And I can turn it up to increase the amount of electricity that they give out, the amount of stimulation they give out. So if I'm in a lot of pain, I can take the iPod out in my pocket, turn it up, and it will numb the pain down for me. So that's proper Star Trek stuff, that is.
That's incredible. That's absolutely
the technology is unbelievable.
Yeah. No,
so talk about guilt. I'm actually guilty about getting that, but if it takes the pain away, I'm not so guilty.
In terms of moving forward, like how are you feeling for the future? Like obviously you
I'm going to be around for decades.
Yes. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear. Listen, Neil, look, it's been an absolute pleasure. For me personally, like listening to you, like I know you enough to know about your story. You know, we did a lot of shows on another YouTube channel, All for United. That's how we met. And I remember you speaking to me. Obviously, a lot people on that platform won't know, but you used to text me all the time saying, Usmaan, you know, obviously. I look forward to the Fridays, basically, Usmaan. You know, that keeps me going, and that was something that really, really used to motivate me as a human being. Because, look, for me, I'll be honest, like it wasn't anything like it was just a podcast. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved it because yourself, Doc, and Joe on it. We always used to take the piss out of each other, but it wasn't. I never saw it as it's an incentive for me to keep going. I just saw it of everyday life, but it really opened my eyes to see a different perspective of how other people see life. And if anything, and I really hope a lot of people watching this, I've taken anything away from it, is to be grateful for every single day. Like I think that's the most important thing, you know, in life, and I'm sure you would agree with this. We get so caught up in life, we forget what's important. You know, you spoke about towards the start of the podcast saying that why me? Why did I get this? However, you also spoke about how selfish you were prior to getting it, and I feel like, obviously, you know, you'd be able to say it better than me, but I feel like it was almost like a blessing in disguise for you to be more grateful of you to understand.
I'm a better person now.
Exactly.
I'm a much better. I'm going to embarrass Shona now, and I hope she's watching this upstairs. But there's a song called "Better Man" by a rock group called Thunder, and that's how Shona makes me. She makes me a better man, and I am a better man. I mean, I'm a better man because I've come out of this a better man, and Shona's turned me into an even better man. And I'm grateful for that. And I won't forget it.
100%. And I think that the message for me personally, what I've taken away is the fact that, you know, sometimes in life you go through struggles, but it's about how you come out on the other side. And as you've said, like for you to have gone through all that and for you to say, I'm a better person for it, for all, you know, everything that you've dealt with. A lot of people listening to this, including myself, will look at, obviously I'm already aware of the story, but it would look at that and think there's no way that I would be able to go through and come out the other side. And you've quite clearly shown that is possible. Everything is possible as long as you fight, you have that purpose, you have focus in life, and you continue to be the best version of yourself. I think, honestly, in terms of the guilt and anything that you feel, if anything, this completely wipes away any of that, because you're a genuine inspiration. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Like, I can't wait to meet you. And honestly, I know everyone in the comments have been giving you so much love. And I'm so happy that you've come on this platform to share your story. I know you reached out to me. I was quite reluctant because it's massively out of my comfort zone as well. As you can imagine, I'm just a football podcast host. But I wanted to share your story because for people like myself and people like, you know, in just general life, especially within my age bracket, we massively forget our purpose. We massively forget the importance of the finer details in our richer family. which are those relationships you hold dear. You know, you said that you're so close to your parents. Again, that's such a normal thing to be, but there's a lot of people out there that don't appreciate their parents. They don't appreciate, you know, the things that they do. And as you said, some of your friends left you because they couldn't deal with seeing you in such a way. And your parents never left you. Your parents, your mum in particular, and of course your dad was there by you through every step of the way. And that just, you know, further emphasizes that, you know, we need to remember who the real people are in our lives. And I think your story, I really hope a lot of people that do watch it understand that we've got to be grateful for every single day. But yeah, Neil, I'm just going to allow you to take the stage one last time, and then I'm going to wrap it up. If there's anything that you want to say to anyone who's watching this, any sort of advice that you've sort of taken away from not only that experience, but how you are at the moment, what advice would you give to anyone?
It's the same as what I said earlier. If you feel you need help, go and ask for it, please. Because I, in my opinion, there is help out there. Maybe there's not enough help out there, but there is help out there. And please, either send me a message, or even better, go and ask for some help. Go to your GP, Google help, Google mental health, and please ask for some help.
Yeah, 100%. I completely echo that sentiment. As I always say on this series in particular, we're here to help you. This series, there's only one purpose of this series. This is for like-minded people like myself, like yourself, that potentially might be struggling in lockdown or any other issues that you have, for you guys to understand that we're all going through the same thing. We all have our own difficulties, our own struggles. Everyone has their own story to tell. And as Neil has just said there, always reach out for help. There's no shame in asking for help. It's okay not to be okay. And what seems to be like the tagline of this series at the moment is there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. I promise you, you know, things could get bleak. Things could be dark. You could be back against the wall. You want to quit, but you got to continue to fight, like Neil has demonstrated throughout his whole life. But look, I just want to say a massive thank you to our guest, Neil, as always. If you need anything, my DMs are always open. I know on the last show that I said that as well. And I actually got a lot of DMs from guys in particular, which is our main demographic. Females as well, if you want to DM us. It's not just about men's mental health, of course, it's about mental health in general. If you're not comfortable expressing your thoughts, etc., to, you know, people, as Neil would suggest, and by all means, check me out, Usmaan Talks United. You can check out Neil's socials as well. It will be in the link below. It's already there. NBurton10. Just show some love, and I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's shown love to Neil. Make sure you go and show this great man some love, man. One absolute legend. I can't wait to meet you, and obviously your missus and your beautiful daughter when all this stupid COVID stuff has passed. And it's going to be a good time. But listen, make sure you stay tuned for next week's show and obviously tomorrow's show. But apart from that, it's been your host, Usmaan. I just want to say a massive thank you again to Neil for sharing his incredible story. We'll be back tomorrow for more content. Apart from that, we'll see you in a bit. And just last but not least, Liverpool